load shedding on food prices.
Now, Labour analyst Michael Bagraim joins us now via Zoom to talk to us a little bit about what he heard in the State of the Nation address. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. What did you hear that either delighted you or maybe left you with some concern?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on air. Look, a lot of it delighted me. The problem is we heard it last year and the year before. We are now talking once again about the presidential employment stimulus, which was trumpeted in 2020, if you recall. And we don't hear anything that's actually really been delivered. So the president tells us tonight that he now wants to report that he's had over 1 million job opportunities. Now that's newspeak for jobs that actually existed, that his people have been replaced. It's all in the civil service, mind you, so it's all paid for by the taxpayer anyway. And the reality is that the job opportunity could mean someone had a job for 1 day or 1 month and no training. The whole thing is ridiculous. Now, if promises were something that we could eat, this would be a fantastic SONA, absolutely fantastic, because there's been lots of it. But what does the president do? He blames COVID-19, he blames unrest, he blames floods, and he, of course, now puts the major blame on load shedding. But putting blame on load shedding is merely trying to say, listen, I killed both my parents. Now you must feel sorry for me because I'm an orphan. It's the same government that caused the load shedding that's now causing the mass unemployment that we are experiencing. The other problem that we see is that the president doesn't come clean with us and doesn't tell us that, in fact, we had the worst unemployment in the world before COVID-19. So it doesn't help to blame. He does say that he understands that the majority of employment's got to come from small business, but then doesn't go on and say what's he going to do. It's quite a simple thing. Tita Mbweni 4 years ago said, all you need to do is deregulate. And of course, the president tonight says exactly that. We need to reduce regulatory impediments. Those were his words. But why doesn't he just do it? It costs nothing to do that. We could have done it in 2020 when it was first put into being with his presidential employment stimulus. Now they want to spend billions again on all sorts of other schemes, and the president's excellent at schemes. He can think up all sorts of things, and he can talk about all sorts of committees and employment stimuluses and everything else, but the reality is that we're not seeing it. We just don't see it. The president tells us that 25 million people who receive support. That's not sustainable. This is a government that's bankrupt. Every single state-owned enterprise is bankrupt. We are on our hands and knees begging, and all we need is to do simple things like Tita Mbweni told us 4 years ago. Let's just deregulate small business. The president himself said 6 months ago that government doesn't create jobs. Government has to create an environment for small business to create jobs themselves. And that environment shouldn't cost. That environment is an environment of deregulation. All our neighbors are deregulating for small businesses. Europe did it 10, 20 years ago. Why can't we do it? And I think the reason is the president doesn't have the guts to face the trade union movement. He doesn't have the wherewithal to actually face up to people and say, I can't take this anymore. We've got to actually deregulate. We've got to give the private sector the ability to create employment. We must create, as government, we must create that environment. It can't carry on. He said, you can't have growth without this deregulation. And of course, the ESCOM issue is going to be with us for 10 years. It's not going to be, he keeps saying we're going to find a way. We've now even got a new minister to look at electricity. Again, it sounds like one of these fanciful plans like bullet trains and smart cities that we heard about last year. Where are these bullet trains? We can't even run normal trains. Smart city, no one's even turned one turf of earth. So what I'm saying is we heard good things. If we could eat good things, that would be great, but we can't. We need to hear things and then we need to put it into place. And somehow he just can't take that next step. It's very sad. It's sad for all of us. We've got 25 million people living on the state. I mean, it is ridiculous. With 60 million South Africans, we're hearing good things, we get excited, and yet nothing happens. It's like the author Paulo Coelho, who said, and I quote, "Those who make promises they fail to keep end up powerless and frustrated. And exactly the same fate awaits those who believe those promises." I don't believe the promises. I don't think South Africans believe the promises. We can't eat promises. We can only hope for jobs. It looks like we're going to have to push this president out. We're going to have to get a new state of order. I strongly believe that.
I'm just wondering if it's the president or is it a party issue? Because in 2014, I remember one president by the name of J.G. Zuma who promised 5 million job opportunities. And I think that was the first time we heard that expression. And of course, that didn't come to pass. So does it matter which president? It seems that this has been a problem that this particular party has had for decades now.
Well, it's not only the party. It's the tripartite alliance. It's the tail wagging the dog. We've got COSATU, the trade union movement, wagging the ANC, and of course the Communist Party. They won't ever want deregulation. They won't allow it. COSATU would not allow it. The president's too scared. Even right now, what we're looking at is this demand for beyond the 3% for the civil servants. They're going to have to cave in because the president doesn't want to lose that vote. So it all boils down to votes. And yes, you're quite right. We do need to get rid of the party, but we're going to probably have to get a party that is not afraid of the trade union movement and certainly not afraid of going forward and deregulating. Yes, we heard about job opportunities then with 5 million. What's happened since then? We've lost 5 million, never mind gained. We've lost 5 million. And yes, we have had some disasters. We've had the disaster of the flooding in KwaZulu-Natal. But the unrest, the civil unrest, was actually created by the ANC. We know that because people are unhappy. They can't see an end to their suffering. You can understand what's going on. We saw an Arab Spring not so long ago up in North Africa. What caused that? The real cause of that was unemployment. We're right there now. And I don't want to see more civil unrest. We don't want to see any other problems coming to the fore. We've got to do something as the populace. We need to speak up. The unemployed South Africa is much greater than employed South Africa. They need to have a voice, and people need to listen to them. It can't carry on like this.
So you talked about the political dynamics and the unions in particular, and it would seem that COSATU has a view. SAFTU has a completely different view, looks like. So one wonders if the problem continues, can the ANC continue to count on COSATU's support? Because the pressures from the Labour on the ground will become even greater, I would imagine.
Well, as you've seen over this last year, we've seen absolutely disastrous circumstances for the ANC every time they've sent a leader to go and speak. Even Ramaphosa couldn't speak at their conference. And every time Wedi Mantashe tried, he was shouted down. So the people on the ground are actually voting with their feet. And they are talking out quite loudly. We've never seen this in our history before. We are at a change. We're at a time of change. People can't take it anymore. The reality, however, is that the trade union movement doesn't want the change that is going to create the jobs. The trade union are talking for people that already have jobs. They're talking for people that want more and more increases as opposed to more jobs. And we need the people who have no jobs to get a voice. And we need a new political party or a new political arrangement of parties to come forward and to allow the unemployed to speak. Because all we're doing now is that the president is being pushed by those that are employed, and in particular in the civil service, which is bloated and overpaid. And the civil service has been offered 3% because that's all they could afford. But watch this space. I can promise you the president is going to cave in and give them 6%. He knows that he can't afford it. He knows that he can't pay it, but he's going to give them that for their political support. It's desperate. The party comes before the state. The party becomes before the people. And the people are those that are starving and need a job. It doesn't help to keep people on 25 million people on support. That's not going to take us anywhere. And so the reality is where we are right now is the majority of people on support, and the people who are speaking the loudest are the elite, and the elite are the employed. And they are those that belong to the trade unions, in particular in the civil service, who are bloated. The civil service should be halved. The civil service should not be giving those increases. We can't afford it anyway. And last time what government did was they gave them an increase they couldn't afford and then ran to the courts.
Michael Bagraim, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very, very much indeed. Your insights greatly appreciated. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right. So, Labour analysts saying that we've heard these promises before. The schemes and the ideas are good, but implementation usually is what lets us down in the end.